The Tonight Show was winding down. Final segment. John Lennon sat in the guest chair, relaxed, casual, talking about his new life, being a father, stepping away from music, finding peace after years of chaos. Johnny Carson was enjoying the conversation. Genuine, real, not the usual celebrity interview. John was different tonight, quieter, more reflective, like he'd found something that made the fame and the chaos and the Beatles and everything else feel small. The audience was calm, not screaming, just listening. Because John wasn't performing, wasn't being clever, wasn't being the sharp-tongued Beatle everyone expected. He was being honest, being human, being exactly where he was. Then Johnny noticed the piano, stage left, beautiful grand piano, sitting there unused. "John," Johnny said, "I know you've stepped away from music, but would you play something? Just one song, whatever you're feeling, whatever comes to you." John looked at the piano, then at Johnny, then at the audience. "I haven't performed in a while," John said quietly. "I'm not asking you to perform, I'm asking you to play. There's a difference." John smiled, sad smile, understanding smile. "Yeah, there is." He stood up, walked to the piano, sat down, adjusted the bench. The studio went quiet, waiting, not knowing what to expect, not knowing what John Lennon sounded like when he wasn't performing, when he was just being. And what happened in the next 4 minutes didn't just make good TV, it changed everyone in that studio, reminded them that John Lennon wasn't just a Beatle, wasn't just famous, was a father, a husband, a man who'd walked away from everything to find something real, something that mattered more than music. But to understand why Johnny's response shocked the studio, why this moment became legendary, you need to understand what John was carrying, and why this song mattered more than any Beatles song ever could. May 1975 was a turning point for John. He'd left the Beatles 5 years earlier, started a solo career, had hits, had success, had everything a musician could want. But something was missing, something crucial, something he couldn't find in music or fame or success or any of the things he'd spent his life chasing. Then Sean was born, October 1975. Wait, May 1975. Sean wasn't born yet. Yoko was pregnant, 5 months pregnant, and John was different, changed, preparing to become a father, really become a father, not like he'd been with Julian, present, involved, choosing family over fame, choosing love over legacy. This Tonight Show appearance was his last, his goodbye to performing, to being John Lennon, the celebrity, to being anything except John Lennon the father, the husband, the human. John's hands found the keys, started playing, not a Beatles song, not a hit, something new, something he'd written, something about leaving, about choosing, about finding what matters when everything else falls away. The melody was simple, honest, the kind of music that comes from being settled instead of searching, from being found instead of lost, from being exactly where you're supposed to be instead of running towards something you can't name. John started singing, his voice different, softer, not performing voice, real voice, the voice he used with Yoko, with Sean, with the people who mattered, not the voice he used for millions, for fans, for being a Beatle. The song was about letting go, about walking away, about choosing the small, beautiful life over the big, empty one, about being a father, being present, being human instead of being legendary. The audience was crying, not everyone, but enough, because they were hearing something they'd never heard from John Lennon. Contentment, peace, the understanding that he'd found what he'd been looking for. And it wasn't on stages, wasn't in studios, wasn't in being famous or successful or a Beatle. It was in being home, being still, being with the people he loved. Johnny Carson sat at his desk, not smiling, not doing host things, just watching, listening, understanding he was witnessing something rare, a celebrity choosing to stop being a celebrity, an artist choosing life over art, a famous person choosing to be unknown, to be small, to be real. When John finished, silence, complete silence, the kind that comes after something sacred, when nobody wants to break the moment, when words feel inadequate, when the only response is quiet. Then Johnny did something nobody expected. He stood up, walked to the piano, sat down on the bench next to John, not as host and guest, as human to human, as someone who understood what John was saying, what John was choosing, what John was giving up, and why it mattered. "John," Johnny said quietly, voice thick. That was the bravest thing I've ever seen on this show. John looked surprised. Brave? I just played a song. No, you just told millions of people you're choosing to disappear. You're choosing to walk away from everything they love about you, everything that makes you special. You're choosing to be nobody. And that's the bravest thing I've ever seen. John's eyes filled with tears. I'm not choosing to be nobody. I'm choosing to be somebody to the people who matter, to Yoko, to Sean, to my family. The world doesn't need another John Lennon album, but my son needs a father, and I choose my son. The audience erupted, not screaming, not fan noise, applause, real applause, support applause, understanding applause, because John had just said what nobody in entertainment says, that family matters more than fame, that being present matters more than being legendary, that choosing the small, beautiful life is braver than chasing the big, empty one. A woman in the front row stood up. Thank you. Thank you for showing us it's okay to walk away, to choose family, to be small. My husband works 80 hours a week trying to be successful, and our kids don't know him. Maybe he'll see this. Maybe he'll understand that being home matters more than being important. Other people stood, sharing similar stories. Fathers who'd missed childhoods, mothers who'd sacrificed family for career, people who'd chosen success over presence and regretted it and wished they'd been brave enough to choose differently. Johnny looked at the camera, at the millions watching. John Lennon just taught us something, that walking away isn't failure, that choosing family isn't weakness, that being present is more important than being famous. I hope everyone watching understands that. I hope everyone watching has the courage to choose what matters, even when it costs everything else. John wiped his eyes. It's not costing me everything. It's giving me everything. I spent 30 years being John Lennon the Beatle, the musician, the celebrity, and I was miserable, empty, lost. And now I'm just going to be John, Yoko's husband, Sean's father, and that's enough. That's more than enough. That's everything. Johnny stood, addressed the audience. This is John Lennon's last performance. He's choosing to step away, to be with his family, to be present instead of being famous. And I want to honor that. I want to tell him, tell all of you, that this is the most important performance of his life. Not because of the song, because of the choice. Because choosing family over fame is the hardest thing anyone can do. And he's doing it, right now, in front of millions. And that's heroic. The show ended there. No jokes, no comedy, no typical Carson sign-off. Just ended with John at the piano, with honesty, with a choice that would define him, not as a Beatle, as a father, as a husband, as a human who'd figured out what mattered. John kept his word, disappeared, spent 5 years being a house husband, raising Sean, making bread, being present, being exactly what he'd promised. No albums, no performances, no public John Lennon, just private John, Father John, present John. Those 5 years, 1975 to 1980. People called it retirement, called it a waste, called it throwing away talent. But John called it the best 5 years of his life, called it finding what he'd been looking for, called it being exactly where he was supposed to be. In 1980, right before he died, John was asked about that Tonight Show performance. Do you remember that night when you told the world you were walking away? Every detail. That was the night I stopped being a Beatle, stopped being John Lennon, the famous person, and started being just John, Sean's dad, Yoko's partner. And those 5 years being just John, those were the realest years of my life, the most important, the most meaningful. Not the Beatles, not the fame, not the music. Those 5 years being present, being home, being exactly what my family needed. That was everything. Do you regret it? Giving up music? Giving up performing? I didn't give up music. I gave up performing. There's a difference. I sang to Sean, played for Yoko, made music in my home, for my family, for the people I loved. That's not giving up music. That's finding what music is actually for, not for millions, for the people right in front of you, for the people who matter. Johnny Carson never forgot that night, used it in his own life, started saying no, started choosing family, started being present instead of being important. And when he retired, he referenced that night, referenced John's courage, referenced the understanding that walking away is sometimes the bravest thing you can do. John Lennon taught me that, Johnny said in his final show, that it's okay to stop, to walk away, to choose the small, beautiful life over the big empty one. He showed me that on my show in 1975, and I never forgot. And I hope you don't forget either, that being present matters more than being famous, that being home matters more than being important, that choosing family is the bravest choice anyone can make. May 1975. John Lennon sang one song at a piano, and Johnny Carson's response shocked the studio. Not because Johnny did something outrageous, because he honored something everyone else would have questioned. He honored the choice to walk away, to be small, to be present, to choose family over fame. And that choice, that song, that moment changed how people thought about success, about family, about what matters. Not forever, not universally, but enough. Enough that some people chose differently. Some fathers came home. Some mothers stepped back. Some celebrities realized fame wasn't worth missing life. But the impact went deeper than anyone knew. Letters flooded NBC, thousands of them. Not from fans wanting autographs, from fathers, from mothers, from people who'd watched John choose family and realized they could too. That success wasn't worth missing childhood. That careers weren't worth missing bedtime. That being important at work wasn't worth being absent at home. One letter stood out, from a CEO in Chicago. He'd been working 90-hour weeks, building a company, becoming successful, important, wealthy. His daughter was 7. He'd missed every birthday, every school play, every moment that mattered. He watched John that night, watched him choose Sean over everything, called his office the next morning, resigned, spent the next 10 years being present, being dad, being exactly what his daughter needed. I was building a fortune, he wrote to Johnny years later, but losing a family. John Lennon reminded me which one mattered, which one I couldn't get back. I don't regret leaving. I regret not leaving sooner. Another letter, from a mother in Boston. She'd been a rising executive, fast-tracked to VP, working constantly, missing her son's childhood, justifying it. I'm providing for him, giving him opportunities, building his future. But watching John, watching him say, "My son needs a father." She realized her son didn't need opportunities. He needed her. She stepped back, took a lesser position, less money, less prestige, more time, more presence, more mom. "My son is 17 now," she wrote in 1990, "and he doesn't remember what I did for a living, but he remembers me being there, at his games, his concerts, his moments." John Lennon gave me permission to choose that, to choose presence over promotion, and it's the best decision I ever made. The entertainment industry noticed too. Other artists started stepping back, taking breaks, choosing family over tours, over albums, over the constant grind of being famous. Not many, but some. And each one referenced John, referenced that Tonight Show performance, referenced the understanding that being home mattered more than being legendary. Sean Lennon, years later, was asked about those 5 years, the years John chose him, chose presence, chose being dad over being Beatle. "Those 5 years saved me," Sean said in 2010, "not just from having an absent father, from believing success mattered more than presence. My dad was John Lennon, one of the most famous people in the world, and he chose me, chose to make bread and change diapers and be exactly what I needed. And that taught me something, that success without presence is worthless, that fame without family is empty, that being important to millions doesn't matter if you're not important to the people right in front of you." Do you think about what he gave up for you? Every day, and I'm grateful, not guilty, grateful, because he didn't give up anything. He found everything. He told me that. In those 5 years, he'd say, "Sean, I spent 30 years looking for this, for purpose, for meaning, for mattering. And I found it making you breakfast, reading you stories, being your dad. That's what I was supposed to be doing, not making albums, being your father." That philosophy spread, slowly, quietly, but it spread among musicians, among celebrities, among anyone who'd achieved success and wondered if it was worth what it cost. John had shown that walking away was possible, that choosing small over big was brave, that being present beat being famous, every single time. The cultural shift was subtle but real. Before John's choice, stepping away from a career was seen as failure, as giving up, as wasting potential. After John's choice, it became permission. Permission to prioritize differently. Permission to say family matters more. Permission to choose presence over prestige. Business schools started teaching it, using John as a case study, not about music, about choices, about success metrics, about what actually matters when you strip away ego and fear and societal expectations. What's left? What do you choose when choosing costs everything else? One Harvard Business School professor built an entire course around that Tonight Show clip. What is success? The final exam was simple. Watch John Lennon choose his son over his career, then answer one question. What are you choosing? And why? Students failed that exam more than any other, not because they couldn't answer, because they answered honestly and realized they were choosing wrong. Choosing careers over relationships, choosing money over meaning, choosing success over presence. And that realization broke them, changed them, redirected them. John Lennon taught my students more than I ever could, the professor said in 2015. He showed them that walking away isn't weakness, that presence is the ultimate success, that being unknown to millions but essential to a few is worth more than being famous to everyone but essential to no one. That lesson changed careers, changed families, changed lives. The Tonight Show clip became required viewing in therapy, in marriage counseling, in family intervention programs. Therapists would show it to couples on the verge of divorce, to parents who'd prioritized careers over children, to anyone who'd lost balance, lost perspective, lost understanding of what actually mattered. This clip saves marriages, one therapist said, because it shows that even John Lennon, one of the most successful musicians in history, chose presence over legacy. And if he could choose that, my clients can too. It gives them permission. Permission to step back, to say no, to prioritize family, and that permission is often all they need. Yoko Ono was asked in 2000, 20 years after John's death, about those 5 years, the house husband years, the years John chose Sean over music. People think John sacrificed for Sean, Yoko said, but Sean saved John. Those 5 years weren't sacrifice, they were salvation. John had been running his entire life, from Liverpool, from poverty, from himself, and then Sean was born, and John stopped running, stopped searching, found exactly what he'd been looking for: purpose, meaning, presence. Sean gave John permission to stop being John Lennon the legend and start being John Lennon the father. And those were the happiest 5 years of his life. Not the Beatles, not the fame, not the success. Those 5 years being dad. The irony isn't lost on anyone. John chose to disappear, to be unknown, to be just dad. And that choice made him more influential than any album, more important than any performance, more legendary than being a Beatle, because he showed that it's possible, that you can walk away, that you can choose small over big, that you can be present instead of being famous. And that matters more than any song he ever wrote. That's everything. Look, if this story moved you, if you're choosing between success and presence, if you're wondering if it's okay to walk away, do me a favor. Hit that like button. Share this with someone who needs permission to choose family, to choose presence, to choose the small, beautiful life. We've completed 89 Beatles stories, 89 reminders that being present matters more than being famous, that family matters more than legacy, that choosing home is brave. Drop a comment. Have you chosen family over career? Have you walked away? Turn those notifications on. Remember, walking away isn't failure. Choosing family isn't weakness. Being present is everything. John Lennon proved that on Carson, when one song changed everything.